Think that quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards? How about that receiver in Miami grabbing a touchdown? Check out DraftKings Pick 6, the newest way to compete against others and play fantasy football to win cash with DraftKings. Pick a player and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat like yards, touchdowns, catches, and more. Get your picks right, and you'll win cash. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code BALLERS. That's code BALLERS for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Offer expires 9/19, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. One per new customer. Reward issued as $50 in non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 6 months. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at NFL.com/terms.
Introducing the new Versed Limitless Pant Collection. Reimagined to deliver effortless style, mobility, and comfort, the new Limitless Collection features moisture-wicking, 4-way stretch fabric that's wrinkle-resistant and doesn't lose fit. Plus, the updated design offers a functional and classic look with unmatched versatility. The new Versed Limitless Pant Collection. Pants made for movement. Available only at Dick's Sporting Goods. Shop now at dicks.com/limitless.
The DFS Studio is brought to you by DraftKings. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. I forgot to mention your birthday last podcast, Betz.
Oh my gosh, Kyle. Just
so late.
Just when you think you know a guy, just when you think he's your friend, he just forgets all about you. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, that moment is come and gone, Kyle. It's like a distant memory at this point. 33 years old, living the life. 3 kids under 3. Just, we're grinding, baby. We're grinding, but we're here. It's been fun, man. It's been a good week. Lots of time with family. Saw a couple of friends recently, too, as well. I eat pretty healthy, but I did have some dessert. Gotta let the hair down. Gotta let the hair down every now and then. But yeah, it's been a good birthday week so far, man.
What's like a splurge food? Because those of you who don't know, Betz, like, he's been a pretty fit guy for the last couple of years since I've known him.
Thanks, Kyle.
What's a splurge food for you?
So my weakness is peanut butter, but when you do peanut butter and chocolate together, then it's just like game over. So like chocolate peanut butter ice cream, I'm a huge fan of. I don't really eat a lot of cake. I'm not a cake guy. But
I'm not a cake eater either.
But also, I mean, every now and then we don't ever get it for like our own birthdays, but sometimes you'll go to a birthday party, and they have an ice cream cake. The layer of fudge with the cookie in between the ice cream, dude. That is it. So I would say if there is one weakness for me, it's peanut butter.
That's so funny because when you said that, I go, I would never eat that. Ever.
Really?
I don't really like chocolate that much. I like chocolate chip cookies. I like certain things, but like I don't eat pure chocolate. I definitely don't eat peanut butter and chocolate stuff and peanut butter and chocolate candy at all. No, put it in the trash for me.
Wow. So like when your kids go trick-or-treating here in a few weeks, they bring home Reese's. You're just like, no, straight to the trash?
It goes to Emma. She likes that stuff. I don't.
I knew I liked Emma. She's great.
Yeah. I just, it's not really my thing. Hopefully it was a good birthday for you. I was reflecting about this. Before I got on this podcast, I was sitting on my front porch in my rocking chair. Oh man, just thinking about life.
Nice glass of cold, sweet tea. Sipping down there in the south.
We're just on our front porch. I do have a nice front porch here, but no, it was drinking tea, man. It's for the podcast. I'm caring about my voice here, but I'm going to the game tonight. We're recording this on Thursday, and I'm going to the Falcons and Buccaneers game. And I usually don't like going to games on the weekend because then I miss everything, especially for our job. If you go to a game on a Sunday, it's like, I don't know what else happened in the NFL. It feels like I'm behind the 8 ball. So a Thursday night game, I like it. But I was thinking about this, like, what kind of like sports viewing person are you? Because I typically don't like going to games all the time. It's more of like, I want it to be special. I love watching college football with people. Like, that's my favorite to watch with people. The NFL, I kind of prefer to watch it by myself.
Same, dude. And
really?
I don't know if this is,
okay.
I don't know if this is a bold take, but like, I kind of hate going to NFL games. Just straight up. Like, I mean, there's fights all the time. People are rude to each other.
People are the worst.
You don't really get to like understand the ins and outs of the play. Maybe that's just like the football nerd in me, but like, I want to understand why, you know, a certain play happened or where the coverage was broken or whatever. And you get all that from home and you get to watch the replay a couple times so you actually understand what's going on. You're comfy on your couch. I mean, to me, it's way better. Now, I've gone to a couple like really big Eagles games that have been super fun. I go to a couple Penn State games every year. Like, I love that atmosphere every now and then. But like, I just don't envision myself ever being like a season tickets type of guy. Like every Sunday I'm there. Yeah, not for me. But I will say, watching hockey in person, super fun. Like going to the Flyers games, stuff like that. Really enjoy that. But yeah, I like to know what's happening around the NFL, and especially in that game, being able to break down each play is kind of what I like to do. So I don't know if that's a contrarian take, but that's where I'm at.
No, Emma figured this out a long time ago. She's like, you don't really like go over to your friends' houses and just watch a bunch of games. I mean, if there's like a special Thursday night or prime time, maybe, but like I usually just like want to be able to on a Sunday, red zone, and for me, it's our job. Like I want to know what's happening everywhere. But yeah, college football and I would say baseball are the ones that I like attending.
Ooh,
and I enjoy going to those games.
Dude, a day baseball game? I mean, we are living.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a great age of Braves baseball where, you got TBS growing up. You could have watched the Braves too, right?
Of course.
That is so wild to me that everybody across the country could have watched the Braves. Like,
are you just learning how technology works, Kyle?
It blew my mind, but it's like, you could watch the Cubs when you got off the bus, WGN. You can watch the Braves on TBS, 7:35, and then dinner and a movie with Paul and Annabelle. I mean, great stuff. Not a sponsor, by the way, TBS, because they don't really carry the games anymore.
No. Also, just before we do move on to the actual content of today's show,
oh yeah,
let's pour one out for Kyle's Braves, everyone. That was a tough watch.
It was a quick exit. It was the guys saying, "Man, we're so tired from this doubleheader. Go to San Diego. Let's just start our vacation. San Diego's nice." So I totally get it. On this episode, we will talk about our cash picks, the games we want to stack. Betz begged me, said we have to talk about this fourth game. So we will be doing that, talking about 4 games to stack, talking about our slate breakers, got some juicy ones, and then continuing on with Borg and Betz. I did want to start us off. We got this message in Discord, and it's a great reminder for people. If you don't have the DFS Pass, you can go to dfspass.com. Use the promo code DFSPod to get all of our picks. If you want to actually see who Betz and I like, DraftKings, FanDuel, if you want to get our best plays, if you want to use the optimizer, which I have in front of me right now, and I'm sorting by projected ownership. I'm also sorting by ceiling outcomes, which I feel like in DFS, a lot of times you just need to be able to see, hey, this player at this price point, what do we project and what could they do if they, 2 or 3x on that? So we did get this great comment from Space Cowboys Cody that I will let you read from Discord.
Yeah, this was so good to wake up to. I think it was yesterday. He says, totally forgot to put this in here on Sunday. I'm kind of a funny follower of the DFS side of the Fantasy Footballers. I've listened to every DFS pod over the last 2 years, but I haven't played a DFS lineup in over 3 years, which is just incredible. He said, I just like the information and applying it to general fantasy football. This past week, however, I got a free entry into the $3 play action, threw together a lineup because why not? Using the principles you guys taught, I got 172nd and made $100. Money has already been spent at Chili's. Thanks a lot, boys.
Not only did you get a free entry, but that might be one of the hardest tournaments to actually the play action is no joke. So 172nd, some free money from listening to two dummies talk about fake football. It's pretty good. So glad you guys are with us. DFSpass.com if you want to be a part of that. And our Discord channel. Right now I'm seeing people already going through Thursday night lineups saying, should I play Kyle Pitts? And Betz asked me too, right before this podcast, should I play Kyle Pitts? We don't know the outcome of that game yet when this comes out, but man, it sure went a certain way, didn't it?
It went either really, really good or really, really bad, and it probably went really bad.
Yeah, it probably went bad. But hey, this is football. There's always hope.
Straight cash, homie.
All right, as of this recording, we have a couple of players that we want to make sure you put into your cash pool. Reminder, cash is talking about double ups. It's talking about 50-50s and head-to-head. So we're looking at contests where you just need to be better than half the field, or that other person that you go into a street brawl and they're bringing some of the weirdest people bets. Every week, it's one of my favorite texts I get from him is he finds somebody who's playing a head-to-head with him, and they are bringing, I don't know, just the most random people possible. No stacking, there's just nothing going on at all in their lineup, and they expect to fight you. Like, no Nico. Imagine going into a fight with Nico last week.
It couldn't be me, that's for sure. I'm trying to pull up the lineup right now. Oh yes, someone played Kareem Hunt, Derek Carr, Kyle Pitts, Roma Dunze in this lineup. So it was just all over the map. So this is kind of what we talk about with like the head-to-heads and stuff like that, is just let people play lineups and make mistakes that you say, wait, what? You did that? So yes, please post your head-to-heads so people can do that against you as well.
Yeah, a lot of times in the lower amounts, it's people just like, oh, I'll do this. I'll throw a couple bucks in there. It's like, okay, maybe this hits in a random GPP every once in a while, but it's like, we're building cash lineups so that you can build your bankroll. At quarterback this week, I think there's 3 or 4 guys right now. Like, I'm not locking in just yet. Jordan Love at 6.5, Brock Purdy at 6.2, and Geno Smith at 5.9. I think the conversation this week is going to be, what do you do with Packers? What do you do with 49ers? What do you do with Rams? Those are like the teams that I'm seeing show up the most. So of those quarterbacks, how are you sorting them out?
Yeah, I think that is a really key decision point just before we get into like the actual plays. Is there's like 3 or 4 Niners that are on the consideration this week. There's like 3 or 4 Packers you could play. There's like 3 Rams you could play. So it does kind of quickly become one of those slates where it's like, these are the teams. And obviously you kind of need to pick and choose your spots where you go from. For example, like if I play Purdy, I probably am not playing Jordan Mason. If I play Geno Smith, I'm probably not playing Ken Walker, and you kind of just have that like trickle down effect. But for me, when I think about the quarterback position this week, it is another week where I think the mid-tier and lower range makes a lot of sense for how the builds look this week. Kind of going back to our conversation from Tuesday where, we could punt it off with like Colby Jack or Tucker Kraft, but like, it doesn't feel good to pay up at tight end right now. And at wide receiver, there's not really a lot of awesome, cheap punt plays as of our recording. So again, I like the balance builds, which leads me to guys like Purdy and Geno. And when you think about Purdy, like at home against the Cardinals with the highest team total on the slate, it's sort of kind of the play every week last year where it's just like he's been so efficient. Even without CMC, there was a week without Debo. He still has just been lights out. 3rd in EPA per play, 7th in completion rate over expected, leads all passers with 9.3 YPA. Juwan Jennings is apparently an MVP player. Like, I don't know what's happening, but the Niners are just good and they have a massive team total. So naturally, it's going to flow through Purdy and Jordan Mason. Then Geno, along the same lines, I have some concerns about the game environment just because it looks like Malik Neighbors is not going to play. Devin Singletary is questionable. So then you ask yourself, like, how do the Giants actually fight back here against the Seahawks? But at the same time, Geno leads the NFL in pass attempts, completions, yards. It's just that his 2.5% touchdown rate is kind of lagging behind, and we know that eventually that regression will hit, and he's due for a massive performance if that pass rate continues. And obviously against the Giants, you're not worried about that. They've allowed 3 of the 4 quarterbacks they've faced to throw for 2 passing touchdowns. So I like the spot for Geno. He's cheap. I like the spot for Purdy. But I know you mentioned Jordan Love too. What are your thoughts there?
He feels volatile. I mean, if you didn't watch the game, he got there. And he got there just because they fell so far behind this past week. So I think Love is fine. I think I like Purdy the most. The stat we gave out on Tuesday is in 49ers wins since he's been the starter, 33 points per game the team has scored, and they have the highest team implied total. So it's just like, I'm leaning into a good offense. I think the hardest part is like Mason looks good once again. So do you want to play those two together? I don't mind it. I also don't mind those in tournaments, but they're both going to be, I would say, fairly popular. So I think it's one of those guys in the 6K range. The ceiling outcome guys are Lamar, 7,500, Allen at 7,700. It's like, okay, you can pay up, and we're going to talk about those games in tournaments. So looking at how the field is going to go this week, in cash, I think it's going to be a lot of these 6K, and I'm including Gino in that category. There's also dudes that project really well in the 5K range. I just need to mention their name and then run away. Deshaun Watson is at 5.3 against Washington. Trevor Lawrence is 5.7 at home. I said it.
Yeah, not for cash. Definitely not for cash. But, I mean, in tournaments, yeah, the matchup is there for Deshaun Watson. You know who to stack him with, right? You stack him with Amari Cooper and kind of move on. And then we're going to talk about Jacksonville a little bit later on. But yes, it's an awesome spot for Trevor Lawrence.
Last question is Jaden Daniels, because we played him almost every single week. He's 6,800. He's at home. They're 3.5-point favorites. I looked this up. This is their highest team implied total they've had in a year. So there's a lot to like there. I brought up some concern on Tuesday about the pass rush of Cleveland and how do you handle that. So any interest in Jaden Daniels, who, by the way, we don't have information yet, but it seems like Brian Robinson is not trending in the right direction. Yeah,
he missed practice Wednesday and Thursday. Austin Eckler was back limited, so it sounds like he'll be good to go off the concussion, hopefully. But Jaden Daniels is one of those guys that, like we talked about, if we talk about this player in 3 or 4 weeks, is anybody going to be surprised if he's 7,500 and that's just routine? I don't think so. So you could argue you're still getting a discount on his ceiling, which he's shown. The number one quarterback in fantasy right now, and if people are not going to play it just because of the perceived matchup with Cleveland, I think it's a pretty good play in tournaments. Now, I don't know that I'm going to go there in cash just because I like the cheaper options a little bit more. But yeah, whenever a guy has that ceiling and he's not going to be highly rostered in tournaments, it's generally a very good play. In Cleveland, they're not really that good on defense right now. They're 22nd right now in DVOA. And that just is a reminder of like how fluky defense can be year to year. So yeah, I think Jaden Daniels is a great GPP play.
And I had a friend that literally just got into this podcast, needed to ask a question, just really urgent. Would you start Jaden Daniels or Brock Purdy in a home league?
Oh, man.
What if I told you in both my main home leagues, those are my quarterbacks?
Oh, like, so maybe you just hedge it. You put one on the other, one on the other.
I thought about that too. I have one team that's rocking, one team that's 0-4.
Ask me later.
Okay, good. All right, running back, moving on. Derrick Henry is going to be the high-priced guy at 7.8. I don't think he's going to get steamed up as much, though. Like, it's not one of those weeks where, like, everybody's going to be playing Henry, because we have Kyron at 7.6, Jordan Mason at 7.4, who's going to, once again, just kill it in all the projections. Like, the stat I gave is he's seeing 39% of the team's total targets and rush attempts. That's the exact same percentage of CMC. So if we were getting, I'm not calling him CMC, let's just say he's 80% of CMC. But at this price, we'd be like, I'm playing this dude at home against Arizona. So all three of those guys, I feel like, are in the mix.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, too, looking at the roster percentages, where when we talked Tuesday, it was like, and it was fresh off Monday night and Sunday night, really, the primetime Henry performance, but it was like, oh my gosh, dude, Henry against the Bengals, like, how do you not play this? And then I looked and I was like, oh, he's actually going to be kind of in like the second tier of roster percentage, where it's like maybe it's 8 to 10, maybe he gets seemed to like 12, but I don't think this is getting out of hand, which means in tournaments, Derrick Henry looks incredible. But for cash, all three of those guys are in play in that 7K range with Kyron, with Mason. Jordan Mason currently tied with Alvin Kamara for the league lead in touches. So this is an absolute workhorse, favored by a touchdown at home against the Cardinals. I don't think there's really too much else to say on that. And then with Kyron Williams, Sean McVay is going to kill this dude. like he is touching the ball so much over and over again, never leaving the field, playing 85% of the snaps. And because the wide receiver injuries continue for LA, we should expect the same in this matchup with Green Bay. So, yeah, it's a good game environment. It's got one of the higher totals. It does that LA and Green Bay game. So I'm very much into Kyron, very much into Jordan Mason.
Yeah, that game's going to carry so much roster percentage that I feel like in cash, there's ways to get different. And because even the chalkier plays, like we'll talk about Wicks, we'll talk about Whittington, we'll talk about Kraft, they're going to be in a lot of lineups. And there's also lots of different paths to fail. So Kyron's awesome at his price point. Ken Bone Walker, or Ken Bone Zone, or Ken Bone Town, depending on who you talk to. 6.8 at home against the Giants. That's a strong tag because that price came out before Monday night.
And he was awesome in that game. We mentioned on Tuesday, we took the under on his rushing yards. Looked good through about the third quarter, and then he just exploded. He's been awesome. And he's only been on the field for 2 games, but he's been incredible in those games. And we saw basically Zach Charbonnet kind of just go right back to this, like, you know, not that exciting secondary role. And Walker should be in line to touch the ball 18 plus times in this matchup against the Giants. I mentioned on the Giants' offensive side of the ball, they've got some issues with Malik Neighbors likely out. Devin Singletary looks iffy at best. So you remove 2 of the best players that they have. It's Daniel Jones on the road as an underdog. Like, I have real concerns about them moving the football, which means you should see Kem Walker in a positive game script. And against the Giants, that should work out very, very nicely. They are allowing the 4th most 10-plus yard runs and the 3rd most yards after contact per attempt, which is basically what Ken Walker does. So this is an awesome spot.
I also am circling Chuba Hubbard at 6.1 because he's been seeing a ton of work. 9 receptions total in the last 2 games, so the floor feels really high. Uncle Jerome Ford, man. I'm glad we get to talk about this guy. 5.8 at Washington. We're still waiting on Nick Chubb information. Not worried about it for this week.
Yeah, he's not going to play this week.
But like, Jerome Ford had 7 receptions last week. And I think he's at least on the radar. I mean, he's getting enough snaps, 75+% of the snaps. I'm fine with him at 5,800. Trey Sermon at 5,700. It seems like Taylor's trending in the wrong direction, but I can't trust him in cash.
Yeah, it's like if he was, 4,800 or something, it'd be like, this is a way different conversation. Like, you kind of,
yes,
you want to fit him in and just spend up elsewhere. But 5,700, like, you got to do something. And we have a pretty long history of Trey Sermon in the NFL, and it's mostly been very bad. So he's one that if in tournaments he gets popular, that's an easy fade for me and just hope for the best.
What if I told you that you have as many top 24 games in your career bets as Trey Sermon does?
Me and Trey, baby. The boys.
You were not drafted in the 3rd round. At least, so you've told me.
Nah, I'm a UDFA.
Still working on that?
Still waiting. Still waiting.
You keep showing up to open tryouts every year. It's like, dude, you have no production profile. It's so bad.
Not even in the database, dude. If people look, a 33-year-old running back in today's NFL, that's what you need.
With your body type, yeah,
I would literally die on the field.
So those are our running backs we like. I wanted to mention Najee on FanDuel, 6.5, since the Sunday night game is a part of it. He's a good play, especially if Warren's out, and Cordell Patterson. At wide receiver, I said earlier, it's like, how many Packers can you play and Rams can you play? Because Jaden Reed looks like a great tag at 6.5. Everybody wants to play Dontavian Wicks, and I just still want to say this. We brought him up on the Dynasty podcast. He's a better athlete than wide receiver. And I feel like 5K also isn't free, but it's a great matchup, so I think he's fine. I do like Jordan Whittington. Like right now in my cash lineup, I have Jordan Whittington of the Rams at 4.6. He saw 97% of the snaps last week, and he's playing the Puka Cooper Kupp role as the man in motion, as the one on crossers. So I feel like in a full PPR format, he feels fine at 4.6. Not great, but like this is the dudes that we used to be paying $3,500 4 years ago. And so this price makes sense now.
Yeah, and if there is a cheap guy that I think is the best, quote unquote, on this slate as of right now, I think it is Jordan Whittington. You mentioned the stats as far as his snap count. It was like kind of lingering in like the 30s, the 40s, and it was like last week, like boom, 97%. Like you're out there, you're the dude. Led all Rams wide receivers in routes and targets. He saw 8 last week. It's a pretty good matchup against Green Bay. They're allowing the 6th most schedule adjusted points so far in fantasy to wide receivers, and Jair Alexander missed last week, so we'll wait and see on him. But obviously, if he doesn't play, that improves the matchup as well. So yeah, I think Whittington is in play in a good game environment at 4,600.
Now, the Giants is another team we're waiting on information. Malik Neighbors has not practiced, but they at least like left open, like we'll still see leading up to stuff. Based on how things usually work, concussion protocol, seems like he's not going to play. Wan'Dale's not cheap, but he is the definition of a PPR play. He was limited in practice. And then Darius Slayton, who pops up twice a year, is 3,900. So any thoughts on the Giants wide receivers?
Yeah, when I saw the Neighbors news, I was like, oh, cool. Wan'Dale Robinson's probably like 4,500, and yeah, we'll plug him in and good to go. 5,600, man. Like, he's $500 cheaper than Deontay Johnson, who's like a legit NFL wide receiver running downfield routes. Wan'Dale Robinson's ADOT currently 4.8 yards. So if you're playing on FanDuel, I would not. I personally would just be fading him in tournaments where he can pile up, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 catches. I guess it's okay. Like I struggle to see the ceiling, but in PPR, he doesn't really have to have a ceiling as long as the volume goes his way. As I mentioned, negative game script here against Seattle. Certainly he's in play for cash, where it's like, man, you remove Malik Neighbors, who has 38% of the targets in this offense. The ball has to go somewhere. We kind of have a long history of Jalen Hyatt running around out there doing nothing. Theo Johnson hasn't done anything in his career yet. Obviously, it's very early. Devin Singletary might miss this game, so it's like somebody has to catch the football. So Wan'Dale makes sense, but man, I'm not going to lie, that 5,600 price tag feels aggressive for Wan'Dale.
Yeah, I think Wan'Dale's main goal in life is to catch 12 balls for negative yards. Like, if he does that,
he's gonna go 12 for 39 this week, no touchdown.
Dude, we'll take that at that price. Debo, how are you handling Debo at 6.8? Because he's going to project great. So Purdy, Mason, Debo, I feel like I'm going to have one 49er no matter what in my cash lineup. 2 sounds fine. 3 feels like a lot.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. 3 definitely sounds like a lot. I'm fine playing Purdy and Debo together. I'm fine playing Debo and Mason together. I don't know that I'd play all 3, but Debo looks awesome, man. 6,800 against this defense makes a ton of sense. In the 2 games that he was healthy before he missed week 3 and then kind of was eased in last week, he saw, let me pull up my numbers here. He saw 10 targets and 9 targets in those games, 29% of the targets, plus you're getting 3 to 5 rush attempts probably from Debo. It's just an unreal usage profile in this matchup. So yeah, Debo feels way too cheap at 6,800.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where getting buried by Debo is a terrible feeling. If you want to in tournaments, pivot and go to Ayuk and say it's finally the Ayuk game, go
or
for
Kittle.
it. But Debo, yeah, Kittle's great too. I love 49ers. We'll talk about that game. But Debo just feels strong. Nico, we have to mention him because he's the man, 7.7. You can look there. We're going to take a quick break because I did a little talking at the beginning, and then we'll come right back.
This episode is brought to you by Coca-Cola Creations. You love the taste of Coca-Cola and love the cookie crunch of Oreos. But what happens when the best drink and the best cookie in the world get together? The best becomes besties. Try the new Coca-Cola Zero Sugar Oreo Limited Edition. Besties for a limited time. Taste it while it lasts. Copyright 2024. The Coca-Cola Company. Copyright 2024. Mondelez International Group.
Let's do it here.
In Leap, I've discovered Flowers in Flames, the new floral facet, the YSL way. It's floral, but in the hottest way, and it's both luminous. It's really such a statement. It's a real ultimate freedom sensation. So, Yves Saint Laurent.
Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I was just talking, man.
That's all you do.
Just farting around. But I did notice during the break, and by the break, like 5-second break, that the builds this week seem to me are going to be paying up at running back in the 7K range, maybe 1 or 2 of those, and then being fine in this 6 to 5K range, Jordan Whittington in the wide receiver. And then at tight end, it's going to be like, are you taking Colby Cheese, taking Kraft, or I just wanted to mention Theo Johnson, brother Theo at 2.6. Another named, yeah, Penn State great. That's kind of the range for tight end. Like, I'm not worried about anybody burying me at tight end, some of the high-end guys in cash.
Yeah, I think it's a punt week. My favorite is Kraft, just given I just think he's a better player than Colby Jack, but yes, they're both in play, and they're $200 different, so I would just say build the rest of your lineup, and whatever you have left for those guys, like if you need the 200, drop down to Kraft. If you can make it work with Colby Jack, that's fine too. Also consider Brenton Strange. We're still waiting on Evan Ingram, but if he is out again this week with the hamstring, then Strange would also be in the same conversation. He's just a little bit cheaper.
Bowers is interesting in tournaments. Once
yes,
again, if you want to pay up and get different at defense, everybody's going to be playing the Broncos, and I feel like you should too. Like, it's one of those things where I'm just going to zero out defense and just think when I'm flipping over the cards, okay, you got the Broncos, me too, and just move on.
Yeah, Broncos And like a lot of times these like sub 3K plays, the actual defense isn't that good, but you're just like, they're playing,
Right.
Bryce Young or whoever it is, and you're like, yeah, just play them. The Broncos have been awesome. They are number 1 in yards per play allowed, number 1 in EPA per play, 6th in pressure rate, and now they get Gardner Minshew without Devontae Adams with a 16.5 team total. So I just don't think you overthink it, and they're an awesome play. I will say in tournaments, Seattle, spend up a little bit and be contrarian against Daniel Jones without weapons sounds very, very good, and you can correlate it with Ken Walker, and good things will happen.
Yep. And we'll have some other defenses we'll talk about in the DFS pass, but I mean, in cash, don't get cute. Just stay with that. Moving on.
Stack Attack.
We're going to talk about 4 games this week that we think you can stack. And this week, despite being a smaller slate, there are enough games. Like, we're not even going to talk about Rams and Packers, but there are ways to clearly stack that game. And so this is a good week for tournaments and being able to look at the roster percentages and get different. First game we're going to talk about is the Ravens at the Bengals. The over-under's at 49. This game started at around 51, so it's kind of been bet down. Baltimore is still a 2.5-point favorite. These teams obviously know each other quite well from the AFC North, and I looked back over the last 4 games, 3 of the 4 of them went over 50-plus points. So these are good scoring teams. The only thing I worry about, and I think it's a reason why this game has come down a little bit, is the pace. Like, we know the Ravens are going to be dead last in pass rate. Bengals generally play slow. Despite being a pass-heavy team, they're just slow. Zach Taylor, they don't do a lot of hurry up. They're tied for 26 in plays per game. So that's my biggest concern about this game tanking. I don't think it's going to get crazy out of hand with roster percentage. Talking about all those other cash plays, like we didn't really talk about Bengals and Ravens a ton for cash. So I like this game in that sense, and I think the stacking partners are kind of easy. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I do think that point that you made about the pace is a concern for me, where it's like, in theory, the Ravens in this game should be able just to hand the ball to Derrick Henry 20 times. And I assume good things are going to happen because they usually do. But, Cincy as a defense has faced the 5th fewest pass attempts per game this year. So teams have decided, hey, we're going to run against Cincy because that's the path of least resistance, and they're still missing a couple of their D tackles. That sounds like trouble when you're facing Derrick Henry. So I do think it's going to be a very conservative game plan from the Ravens as far as the pass attempts, which means you're obviously not excited to double stack Lamar. You're probably skinny stacking him. And right now, you don't have any confidence in any of the pass catchers. Like, Zay Flowers did nothing last week. The artist formerly known as Mark Andrews ran 10 routes last week. So I wanted to come on here and be like, just get leverage on Derrick Henry, like play Lamar stacks. And weird stuff happens in football, right? So in theory, that still works from a GPP leverage standpoint. But if the field is not going to play Derrick Henry at a high rate in this matchup, I just think it's a great spot to go to.
Yeah, I think he's a really good play. Based on his salary, to 3.5x, he has to get 27 points, which the last 2 weeks, 32.9, 37.4. I don't think any of us are questioning his ceiling outcome in this game. So then you look at lineups and how people are going to play this. They're going to play Henry on that side and then stack up Burrow, double stacks. I mean, it feels pretty clean and clear. And then if you did want to play Lamar, you just skinny stack. You just pick the receiver. And I will say that I think this is a better spot for Zay Flowers than they've had in the past, since he does a lot more one-on-one looks. And you kind of see Zay get those manufactured screens and all those things. I still don't love him as a play, but I feel like the Ravens side is pretty clear. You're either playing Henry or you're stacking up Lamar. Yep.
And then on the Cincy side, I have pretty much zero interest in either Zach Moss or Chase Brown in this matchup. Just the Ravens have been so good against the run. We're starting to see Chase Brown eat into Zach Moss's workload a little bit, so that gets very messy. So I'm out on those guys, but I think what you're hoping if you play a Joe Burrow stack is King Henry just hits a couple long ones and it speeds the game up and they have to throw from behind, which they want to throw, but like you said, they've been very slow when they do it. So you're hoping Derrick Henry rips off a couple long ones. Looking at the roster percentage report, looks like nobody is going to play Joe Burrow as of now. A little bit on Jamar Chase, like 8 to 10%. And then like nobody's playing T. Higgins again. So it's very good from a roster percentage leverage standpoint if you stack up Joe Burrow. And like I said, the matchup is there, right? Like the Ravens have been giving it up through the air, except for last week when they played Josh Allen and things just went sideways. Every other quarterback had gone over their yardage total in the prop market. So like it kind of is a good ceiling game for Joe Burrow if it hits right.
Yeah, the problem is figuring out the third piece, because you're playing Burrow and Chase or Burrow and Higgins, and then I probably won't be playing Chase or Higgins with them. Like I'm not paying for all three. Then you want to go to the tight ends, and it's like Eric All led them in snaps, but Gesicki led in routes. They've both been targeted a ton, by the way. Like that's the biggest difference in this Bengals offense this year is that we're adding in the tight end position. Now, some of those have been just like dinky. We don't actually care about these targets. Remember against Kansas City, they just like peppered the tight end over and over again. I do like Higgins a lot. I think Higgins is a really good tournament play at his price point, especially on FanDuel. 6,800 is great for his skill set. So I think that's how I would prioritize this game, is playing Burrow with T. Higgins and then Henry, like on FanDuel. That's probably the way I'm going to do it, and kind of go from there. But like I like the Bengals side.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, especially if nobody's going to look their way. And like I said too, the Ravens have been so good at in the last couple of weeks scoring that you saw that Dallas game. Like it just forced them to have to throw over and over again. That was kind of the plan with the Bills, but things just went so sideways in the second half there. So yes, you're hoping that happens and Joe Burrow just chucks, and I think he could get there in volume. So yeah, I like it.
All right, real talk. Are you going to be playing lineups with Mark Andrews in them?
I mean, I think for the brand and for the bit, like I'll have to throw one in there. It won't be my high dollar lineups, but maybe in a large field, small entry fee, then I'll do it. But yeah, why not? He's gonna literally be what, like 1%?
I'm looking at him right now. Oh god, it is exactly 1% as of this recording. I think he'll be a little higher than that.
I don't feel good about it, but at 4K, sure.
I feel like that's one of those things where you sort and you go, what's the free contest this week? All right, I'm playing Mark Andrews in this contest. No, I'll play him a little bit. Just
one lineup. Why not?
Yeah, it's important for us to feel pain. It reminds us that we're human.
Mm-hmm. It's very good.
All right, what's your Vegas take?
I like anything less than a field goal. I like the Ravens here.
I do too. If it gets to 3, I'm fine with taking the Bengals. I think it's going to be a good game though. Next one, Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are 7-point home favorites. The over-under's at 49.5. It's been dancing around to 50. In my game pace score, I have this at 4.25, which is the highest of the week. And partially it's because the 49ers just roll when they are favored like this. It just happens. And in games they play the Cardinals with Purdy, it's been over 35. Like it's just like, okay, if you know you're getting 30 plus points from a team, you're going to play them. The Cardinals defense is a train wreck. It's not good. They're allowing the highest opponent completion rate in the NFL, 79%. And yeah, Brock Purdy's been really fun this year. Not, like beyond just what they've been doing, the biggest difference in the 49ers is the yak plays aren't happening. You mentioned earlier, like his YPA and some of his other stuff is still great, and yet he's not getting these massive plays from Debo or Ayuk at all. I mean, for a while, a couple weeks ago on the Dynasty podcast, I said that Ayuk he averaged 1 yak per reception. Like it was just so bad. So this sets up really well to play 49ers. Like you can play Purdy and Mason together and just say they're going to score all the points. You're just going to run into a lot of roster percentage with that too. So, I mean, I'm going to be playing 49ers, and I will be playing them as one-offs a lot too.
Yeah, I think you want a lot of exposure to this offense for obvious reasons. This week, they're just underpriced, and they're good plays, right? Like, Purdy should probably be more expensive. Mason should definitely be more expensive. Debo in this matchup feels like he should be a lot more expensive. What a value stat, Kyle. Are you kidding me? They got the highest team total. And Ayuk specifically on FanDuel, 6,700, man, where it's like, he's never really going to like PPR his way there. Like he's never giving us these like 8-9 catch games. But when he hits, right, it's like 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown or something like that. Eventually a good game from Ayuk is coming, right? Like he's just too good to do this for forever. So if the roster percentage is not going to follow as leverage off Debo, it makes so much sense in tournaments. So I like that with Ayuk. But yes, I think the Niners are a great place to start your lineups this week.
Could you play Mason and Debo in your lineup and move on from there and not play Purdy?
Yeah, I think you could.
Or is that just running into so much roster percentage that you have to
yeah, that's the issue for me is that it's one of those that you can't like blindly do it and then start building. You need to say, like, if I'm doing this, I'm taking on so much roster percentage that the other spots in my lineup need to be very different, but they project very well. They're two of the best plays on the slate for a reason. So if you did want to do that, I think it's fine. Like I said, just get different elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time not playing Jordan Mason. Like, even if I'm building, let's say I'm stacking up that other game. It's like, okay, I'm doing Burrow. I'm playing him with Chase or Higgins. And then it's like, I'll play Henry. It's like, oh man, but what if Mason, like at 7,400, just crushes? I looked it up over the last 5 years. Teams favored by more than a touchdown in 50-plus point games have averaged 27 rush attempts and 129 rushing yards. That's the average. Now you think of the ceiling outcome for him, it's over 102 scores. And then he is definitely the optimal at his price point. So Jordan Mason's an awesome play. I feel like he's going to be in my cash lineup for the 4th week in a row.
I was going to say, at this point, like when I write up the cash article, I pretty much just like copy and paste the blurb from before and change the numbers, because it's like, oh, we got 22 touches last week. Oh, it was 23 this week. Oh, it was only 21. It's like, man, he's just so involved that I think he's very good chalk.
On the Cardinals side, I don't have a lot of confidence. I mean, it's Marv, and that's kind of it. Like, I don't really want to search through this. And the 49ers defense, they're playing a ton of man coverage. It's cover one. And so when you do that, you basically say, my best player, go one-on-one. It's what Amari Cooper's always been so good at. It's like, if you play man coverage on him, he will beat you. So I'm probably going to stay there. I just feel like Kyler's so hard. He hasn't been scrambling as much as we want. And so, like, stacking him up can obviously give you leverage on Purdy stacks. So if you wanted to go Kyler and Marv and then Mason on the other side, it's expensive, but it can work. But I feel like Kyler's somebody I'm probably going to be low on this week.
Yeah, and just, I know this isn't how we should play DFS, where it's like you look at what happened last week and just think it's going to happen, but it's just not been that good, right? You had that one incredible game against the Rams, then you have to ask yourself,
the Rams?
Is it just the Rams, right? Like, Kyler has not been that good this year, and last week was a major disappointment against the Commanders, where it's like, dude, and he didn't run, which is so weird last week. So Kyler always has the ceiling. I think that's worth chasing, especially if he's not going to be played. But considering he's 6,700, you know, and like all those quarterback plays we talked about.
No value,
dude. You're spending up, and it hasn't been very good. That's not how I like to play the market, Kyle. It's just, it doesn't make you feel great about it. But I think what you're hoping is, you know, you're hoping the Cardinals fall behind, they have to throw, and it's just negative game script, and he volumes his way there, and he runs in a negative game script, scrambling and stuff like that. So for large field, I think it's interesting, but in the smaller field stuff that I play, I probably won't look his way this week.
I just think the Cardinals are going to get the tar beaten out of him again. Like, I don't want to play them.
There. Did I really? Out of him this week.
Oh, brother. Kyler in his career against the Cardinal or against the 49ers is 2-4. And fantasy output hasn't been great. So I don't know. I feel like this is a matchup where I'll take 49ers. I know it's a touchdown, but I will take the 49ers in the points.
I will take the 49ers to score at least 29 points.
Okay, that's the better one. Take over their team implied total.
But any interest in T. McBee this week? He's interesting because, like we talked about, I feel like the conversation is the same. It's so frustrating, right? It's like, this week, everybody's playing a cheap tight end. What if we spend up to get different? Oh, they all stink. Like, that's kind of how it feels. But McBride in a negative game script, could he be the first look if they're taking away Marv? I think that's interesting. I don't think anybody's going to play him, which I just wanted to put on your radar for tournaments.
McBride as the skeleton key that unlocks it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year against San Francisco, he had a game where he went 10 for 102, and then a game where they still decided they wanted to play Zach Ertz. So, but he's fine. I like the contrarian part. If you don't want to pay up for Marv and just say it's, you know, I'm taking 2 to 3 49ers and then McBride's the piece you need, totally fine with that. Makes sense.
And real quick on Marv too, if I'm going to play him, it's on FanDuel this week, 7,400. He's cheaper over there than he is on DraftKings.
That, my friends, is value. All right, a couple more matchups we're going to talk about here. Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans, the Stephon Diggs revenge game of all revenge games, and there is no one else on the planet that has more revenge in their heart than what this man has, except when Devontae Adams gets traded, and if he plays that other team, he'll be like, I hate the Raiders, and I hate... Last year, if you watched receiver, it was like, he was nice about it, but he hated Jimmy G. He's like, I hate,
sure, dude.
I hate getting balls thrown from this man. It is the worst. This line is danced back and forth. It's basically a pick'em, right? I mean, no, it's Buffalo -1. I've seen Houston -1. It's basically a pick'em. The over-under is 47.5. Is that where you're seeing?
Yep.
Okay. The hardest part about this is that Houston plays slow with Bobby Slowick. It's very frustrating considering who they have at quarterback. And the Bills play slow because that's what Joe Brady likes to do. So this game should go off. If this was like 2018 DFS, you'd be like, sweet, let's go for it. It's in a dome. But that's my only concern. And right now, Khalil Shakir still not at practice. Dude doesn't want to show up for work. That's fine. I saw a report about David Njoku today. I mean, it says, quote, he's not practicing today, but it's part of the plan. Day on, day off. I mean, is that what this is? Like, imagine if, you just said, I'm not going to work today.
I have said that actually a couple times, and it's been received quite well, so it's been great. Yeah, the Shakir injury happened on Sunday night. He left for a period of time and came back in with his ankle taped. So we'll see on Friday, as you're listening today, what he does. But that actually has a pretty big trickle-down effect for me in terms of how I view Dalton Kincaid and how I view James Cook, who I think is an awesome play this week. When you think about Jimbo Cook, you think about where everybody is spending their money at running back, right? We talked about Mason. He's an awesome play. Kyron's a great play. Derrick Henry's a great play. Those guys are all a little bit more expensive. Ken Walker's right next to him in pricing. So you pivot. I think James Cook could go off here. The matchup is right against Houston. They are bottom 10 in APA per rush attempt. We just saw a lot of other teams have success. Tank Bigsby ripped off a ton of big plays last week against Houston. So, if there's no Khalil Shakir, you could see more usage for James Cook. I almost called him Jim Cook. James Cook in the receiving game, kind of in the fact that they operate in the close to the line of scrimmage area of the field is kind of what I'm getting at. So I think the pass catching could spike here for James Cook. I think the rushing matchup is right for James Cook. This is a bounce back spot for me for the Bills offense. So I'm in on James Cook big time this week in tournaments.
Yes, I definitely think this is a good bounce back spot. I like Josh Allen. I'll talk about him in a little bit. I think he's a really good play because no one else is playing him. However, you have to ask yourself with Josh Allen, who are you stacking him up with? It's usually just a skinny stack. So we want Shakir to play. Keon Coleman got a little bit more involved this past week, but he has kind of been mostly a dud. We want the big plays, so he's kind of interesting. And then Dalton Kincaid, I feel like, is going to also be a tight end that gets lost in the mix. While everybody else wants to punt this week, I think he makes an easy stacking partner. Still frustrating because they're not getting the volume we want, but I think he's fine at his price point. I do want to mention the Texans defense. The way that they filter things out is very different in a lot of the league. They take away a lot of the slot targets, which is where Shakir has been working and where Kincaid's been working. So you have to adjust some of that. It does lend me to want to play Coleman as a dart throw, and that's all he is, just a dart throw. But I think the Bills side, I like them a lot. 24 implied points is great. And then on the Texans side, we're still waiting on Joe Mixon news because the Bills are a run funnel. They've been the worst in the league, 32 in scheduled adjusted fantasy points, dead last in yards per carry allowed. So Mixon's a good play. Cam Akers, of course, shows up again to the party. He's like, hey guys, I'm here again in case Joe's not here. It's like, dude, we've invited you multiple times. We do not want to invite you back. We like a Goomba Wale.
It's been ugly, man. It's been really bad with Cam Akers, but what's been really frustrating about Houston is, you look at kind of how well they played last week. It was very predictable, right, against the Jaguars, where it's like, oh, they should just absolutely crush here, and they did. But to me, ask yourself, how does this game fail? Houston is 30th in EPA per rush attempt offensively, but they're still posting a negative pass rate over expectation. So, Bobby, my friend, please unleash CJ Stroud, because that is the best way to move the ball right now. Now, part of that is skewed because Mixon's been out, and I get that. But it's the matchup is there to run the ball, but I just don't know if I can trust Cam Akers after how bad it's been. So I don't really have a ton of interest, especially if Mixon is out and he, for some reason, becomes popular. That would be a spot I'd look to fade personally.
Do you need me to contact Bobby Slowick?
I know you guys are close personal friends.
We were former colleagues. I might have his email, so maybe I'll talk to him and see if he can feed Tank Dell, because I would love that for one of my teams.
I need that more than you know.
So are you stacking up Stroud? Are you like double stacking him? I actually think it's kind of a sneaky game for Schultz, but Tank coming back changes that. It's kind of just like you pick two dudes, but there's four of them, so I feel like I'm going to pick wrong.
That is the terrifying part, but keeps roster percentage in check. I personally think this game goes under. I don't know if that's a boring take, but just with how the pace is
I hate
with
that,
Houston
man. And
the pace with Buffalo, I just think the Bills are going to play very well in this spot after just getting crushed in primetime. So I'm not super interested personally in Stroud stacks this week, is my take.
Yeah, this is my least favorite part of DFS. When you have teams that have 3 or 4 options, like there will be a week where Tank Dell goes off. There will be a week that Nico Collins goes off. We've already seen that a bunch. There will be a week where Dalton Schultz falls into the end zone twice. And you're like, how do you figure that out? I mean, Diggs is seeing 8 targets, so he's going to project fine. And you're trying to figure out who throws or who gets the receiving touchdown. So you can stack up that side. I don't think Stroud's going to be crazy popular. So this game overall, I feel like it's not going to be played a ton.
Yeah, and I mean, there are scenarios where it goes off, right? It's in a dome. Stroud historically has played a lot better at home in his short career than on the road. So there's a path, obviously, and that's something to consider is it is going to be a low rostered game. So you could play a Stroud stack or an Allen stack and then put higher roster players around it, and your lineup would be perfectly fine from a tournament standpoint.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Texans here.
Oh, I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, well, you got a lot to learn.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Minty, refreshing, classic. And it's not just the Tic Tac mints. It's the new track by Kanice with beats that'll leave you feeling as refreshed as a Tic Tac and a vibe that'll take you on a ride through 100 layers of flavor. Does it get any fresher than this?
Tic Tac, enjoy the bright side. That 100-layer joyride. Pop one, let's paint the town. Freshman flavors all around. Take a ride on a Tic Tac.
Pick up a pack of Tic Tac mints today.
Have you changed your mind at all during the break?
About the Bills?
Yeah.
Dude, lock of the week. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Run to your sports book. Run.
Sprint.
All right, we're going to talk about one more game. It's a bonus game this week. Bonus for the crew. It's the Colts at the Jaguars. Right now, the Jaguars, who have as many wins as you and I, are favored at home by a field goal. The over-under is 46. Wanted to mention this, that there is some weather concerns, but we're at the point of the season where it's nice to remind people that in DFS, people mostly overreact to weather. They mostly go way overboard. If you really want to hedge stuff about weather stuff, here's what I would always do. Just take the under the entire game, in player props and just move on. But I'm not that worried, and we'll wait to see. We have a weather conditions report. That's an article on our site. You can look at that, but in general, people overreact in weather, and it doesn't affect things, especially if it's just rain. Little rain never hurt anybody.
No, little rain. It's nice. It cools you off, right? I mean, it's no big deal. In all seriousness, the weather article comes out, I think it's like Saturday evenings usually, maybe Sunday mornings, but look for that before game time. It'll have the most accurate info in it. But as of now, like 78 degrees, some rain showers, 13-mile-an-hour winds with some gusts up to 20. Yeah, it's a factor, but like if the field is going to just see this and be like, you can't play this game because of the rain, I'm going to play this game, right? Like people just overreact all the time to weather. So caveat, make sure you're tracking the weather all the way up to kickoff. If it changes, obviously adjust. But right now, I love this game. the market's on the Jaguars, and they've been terrible, but they've got a massive team, not massive, but on this slate, 24.5 is pretty high, 5th highest on the slate for the Jaguars. I know Trevor Lawrence has been terrible, but this is an absolute eruption spot for Brian Thomas Jr. Christian Kirk's in a very good spot. You could get Brenton Strange very cheap. So, like, again, the value stack with Trevor Lawrence against this Indy team is pretty unreal, man. I mean, when's the last time we saw Justin Fields have a ceiling game as a passer? It's been a very long time. Like the Washington game of last year when he was with Chicago, dude was unreal against the secondary last week. They are so bad, Indy is, defensively, that this is a good spot to get right for Lawrence. Now, maybe they're just not that good. Like maybe straight up it's just over for Doug Peterson and the Jaguars. But if the field isn't going to play it when it's this cheap, I'm on it.
The Wendy's value menu game of the week is found right here. You get everything. I mean, would you want a baked potato? It's here, Christian Kirk. You want to go to the Super Bar? You want
Dude, the Wendy's Super Bar. Oh my gosh, when I was a kid in the 90s, I was quite chubby. The Super Bar was life. Okay? I don't know why the pudding was the pudding was so good. It was out of this world. We would go after church every Sunday, and it was just, I'm sitting there, waiting, watching the clock till the sermon's over so I can go to Wendy's for the Super Bar. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
So just to get a good picture, everybody, I know we're an audio podcast. Think of Tubby Betz at the Wendy's Super Bar getting his third helping of pudding.
That is quite accurate.
Man, I've talked to you about Super Bar maybe 2 or 3 times in our friendship. Every time, it just brightens your day.
I'm telling you, the memories are there.
Bring it back.
Please.
Bring it back, Wendy's.
Who do we need to contact to make this happen?
All right. Shout out right now. This is a bat signal. If you or someone you love is somehow involved in Wendy's corporate,
please
talk to us. Or local Wendy's. It doesn't have to be corporate. Corporate could shove it for all unless they bring back the Super Bar. In that case, we love them.
DMs are open.
It's just a janky little Super Bar that we just set up. It's not real Wendy's.
Oh, man. It'd be so good. I'd be there.
I'm going to call my mom likes a good FaceTime about nostalgic things. I'm going to call her and talk to her about Super Bar. She likes that stuff.
Let me know how it goes.
I feel like this game also is going to go to weather concerns, the Jaguars concerns, and then also the quarterbacks for the Colts. We still don't know, and there's been this back and forth of like Richardson doesn't have to practice and he can play. So that in itself is going to keep the roster percentages down where people are like, I'm not going to build a lineup right now having to pivot on Sunday. So all the receivers are going to be cheap and down roster percentage. Josh Downs is seeing a crazy amount of volume in his 2 games back. He's being targeted on 26% of his routes. He's a PPR stud. Pity City on FanDuel. Love it at 6,100 if you wanted to go there. Adonai Mitchell ran 9 routes last week. So don't really know if he's the dude you want. Alec Pierce, though, still leads his team in receiving yards. Don't discount him.
Okay. I actually think he's super interesting for like the largest field dart throws because this Jaguars secondary is so bad. I just talked about how bad the Colts are. The Jags are horrific, right? And Shane Steichen is very smart. You look at this situation. Jonathan Taylor probably not playing. So you're losing your starting running back that is your bell cow. Is he really going to put the ball in Trey Sermon's arms 20 times in this game? If he does, this is not the Shane Steichen I know. He should up his pass rate here. Their defense probably won't be able to stop the Jags. I think you could see a back and forth affair, assuming the weather cooperates. So I am very into this game just from a let's bet on an up and pass rate here. Maybe Anthony Richardson can get it done. I'm not convinced. But if it's Joe Flacco, oh baby, we are cooking. He is 5,500 on DraftKings, very cheap. And the stacks are very cheap in an awesome matchup. So I love this game, and I'm definitely going to be overweight.
Okay, so I feel like this is a game that I don't know if I'm going to fully stack up, but I want correlated pieces. So, you like BTJ a lot. I kind of want to just mention ETN because I feel like he's going to get lost in the shuffle. Nobody's going to play him. Right. We know that teams can run the ball in the Colts 38 times a game through 4 games. That's the most of any team they've seen over the last decade through the first 4 games. And last year against the Colts, RB6, RB3. Just want to mention him as like, if you wanted to play ETN and Downs or BTJ and Pity City, like that's probably how I'm going to approach this game. It's just 2 guys on opposite sides correlating.
Yeah, I could buy that too. That makes sense. And especially with how the price works here, if some of these guys let you spend up on, a Josh Allen or whoever you want at running back too. So that makes a lot of sense to me as well.
Doug Peterson said he, quote, hasn't lost the locker room.
Oh, the locker room couldn't be more lost. That's when that was the answer, you knew it was over.
Dude, you've lost 9 of your last 10 games. You've lost the locker room.
Yeah, it's not good.
I will take the Colts +3.
Oh, +3. That's super interesting. I like the over, and I will also take the Colts +3.
Nice. Great work.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
I was on the front porch, as I said earlier, just thinking like, man, what's a good sponsor? It's, because they're calling, right? They were all calling me, all the sponsors at the same time. And it's like, gosh, last week was Bugles. I was like, oh, what about Totina's Pizza Rolls? No, I feel like we've used that before.
We have.
And I feel like they're not as good as they used to be as a kid.
They're not.
And so I went in nostalgic mode. And so this week's Slate Breaker of the Week sponsor is 3rd grade.
What?
My son's in 3rd grade. And I was like, man, what was 3rd grade like? And so it's wild that you can get a sponsor as big as the entire 3rd grade.
The whole grade.
So, yeah, man. I mean, they are rolling in the dough. But it is a chance for me to ask who your 3rd grade teacher was.
Oh, I was actually just thinking about this. I remember my 2nd grade teacher, Mrs. Sell. Okay. She was incredible. I actually don't remember who my 3rd grade teacher was.
Hey, probably was not a good teacher then.
Yeah, I guess not.
I had Miss Perry, who I think I had a pretty big crush on her, and then she left in the middle of the year.
There's so much information happening about our lives on this episode.
It's key. I feel like somebody from my 3rd grade class is just going to be like, hey, Kyle, let's talk. All right, so Slate Break of the Week. Last week, we crushed it. I said Nico, you said Jamar Chase. We had a great week. This week, I feel like we're going a little bit on a limb. So you go first, because we just talked about this game.
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. is in an eruption spot. I mentioned the Jags had the 5th highest team total on the slate, and perimeter wide receivers are just destroying the Colts. George Pickens last week, 7 catches, 113 yards. Rome Odunze the week prior, 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Romeo Doubs with Malik Willis went for 62 yards against this defense. Nico Collins in week 1, 6 catches, 117 yards. Brian Thomas Jr. has looked great in his opportunity, and specifically with this matchup, looking at how Gus Bradley uses cover 3. That's just what he does. Everybody knows it. But it's a very small sample size. Against cover 3 this year, Brian Thomas Jr. leads the Jaguars in target share, 27%, and he's averaging 3.97 yards per route run. Again, small sample, but if it fits my narrative, Kyle, I'm going to run with it. So I love this spot for Brian Thomas Jr. To me, he's one of the best plays on the slate in tournaments at the mid-range for wide receiver.
All right. Usually I don't give out quarterbacks as slate breakers because the roster percentages stay pretty tame. This week, I feel like nobody's going to be playing some guy named Josh Allen, QB extraordinaire. If you go through his game logs, it's very simple. Great game. Terrible game. Great game. Terrible game.
Hot cold.
What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean next, Betz?
I mean, Sunday night, it was pretty terrible. So, eruption spot.
But seriously, I think my strategy this week in doing this is we talked about that game. I feel like not a lot of people are going to play it. But paying up at quarterback is essentially saying he has a ceiling to outdistance himself from the field. Like, other than Lamar, I feel like Josh Allen is the only other quarterback that I would be scared of to go for 35 or 40 points on this slate. And so you're paying up to get different. The Texans are allowing a league high 0.87 fantasy points per dropback when they are employing 2 high safety looks. And Josh Allen, over the last year, has been second in fantasy points per dropbacks against 2 high safety looks. I would love it if Khalil Shakir was in this game. So I feel like that part I still want to monitor. But I do think Josh Allen has the ability to go bonkers in this game, to run for a score, to throw for 2, maybe even hit 300-yard bonus if this game goes back and forth. The pace is the only thing I'm worried about, but right now I'm looking at our quarterbacks. I sorted by ceiling outcome, and I looked at our projected ownership. It's like Purdy, 9%. Lamar Jackson, 10%. Jaden Daniels, 11%. Jordan Love, 10%. Josh Allen is sitting there at 4%. What could possibly go wrong paying up $7,700? I mean, he used to be what, like $8,500, $8,200 last year?
I was going to say, if this was his price last year, this would be like the cash lock. But because pricing has changed on DraftKings and because all of the roster percentage is going to go right to that like mid to low 6K range, yeah, nobody's going to play Josh Allen. And it's just like Derrick Henry. When no one's going to play him, you play him and hope for the best.
All right, one more segment.
It's time for Borg versus Betz, presented by DraftKings.
All right, we are back 4 weeks in. I am 6-2. Betz is 5-2. Of course, this year I've gotten buried by dinky tight ends. My 2 losses have been trying to get Cade Otton's under and Colby Parkinson's under. That's just the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, I think in Colby it was like by 3 yards or something like that. So that just hurts even worse.
Yeah, he needed like 7 or 8 targets just to get there. So if you don't have a sports book, it's no problem. You can play DraftKings Pick 6 with us. Betz and I will give you 2 picks each that you can use this week and parlay together. So Betz, go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to take Amari Cooper more than 51.5 receiving yards. Now, he has only been over this line in 1 of 4 games. But last week, he would have been well over this if that stupid holding penalty didn't get called, which was not even affecting the play. Not bitter. Didn't have him anywhere. Not bitter. But it's just a good buy low spot on Amari where he's facing Washington. The matchup is obviously there. Per Next Gen Stats, Amari Cooper has totaled 335 air yards on targets that fell incomplete. That's by far the most of any wide receiver. So we're getting a discount on, I think, a line that should be higher in this matchup. And because Amari Cooper hasn't converted those yet, it's a little bit too low. So give me the more than 51.5 on Amari Cooper.
I will take the exact same line for T. Higgins, more than 51.5 receiving yards. Last week, he saw 10 targets. He went 6 for 60, and he's actually outpacing Chase in the weeks that he's returned in first read targets, 13 to 11. Last year against these Ravens in week 12, he had 12 targets, 8 for 89 and 2. So you are basically saying that T. Higgins and the passing offense, which we talked about earlier with Joe Burrow, they're going to have to throw. And if you're telling me T. Higgins is going to see 8-9 targets, I feel like it's a really good spot for him. So T. Higgins more than 51.5 receiving yards.
All right, let's keep it with the Bengals. I'm going to go Zach Moss less than 44.5 rushing yards. He's coming off a season low in snaps last week. Still seeing a ton of work, but like I mentioned, he and Chase Brown are now sharing touches in the backfield, whereas early in the year it was almost all Zach Moss. This is a pass-heavy game plan. You just talked about with T. Higgins. I think they're going to really struggle to run the football against the Ravens, as every other running back has experienced. James Cook, 39 yards. Zeke and Rico Dowdle combined for 38 yards. Zamir White, 24 yards. Isaiah Pacheco in week 1, 45 yards. So they've held almost every running back under their line this year in terms of the props market. I will take less than 44.5 on Zach Moss.
Betting against Zach Moss. If he beats you, man,
it's going to hurt.
It is going to hurt. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson more than 54.5 rushing yards. Against the Bengals in his career, he's gone for 119, 152, 65, 97, 88, 58, 54, and 54. So he's hit this line in every full game that he's played, except for the last 2 where he was at 54, which is where this line is at. So I will take more. I think he's been seeing the type of, design runs that we care about, and the scrambling's there. Apart from Derrick Henry, this team is still running the ball at the highest rate in the league. And so I think Lamar, in a game environment we know we like, sitting around that 49 total, Lamar Jackson more than 54.5 rushing yards. That was Borg vs. Betz presented by DraftKings Pick 6. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code BALLERS. That's code BALLERS for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. That's going to do it for us, Betz. You get to wish me and my Falcons good luck.
Well, people are going to know how that game went as of Friday morning, so Kyle is going to be very happy or very sad, especially if Cade Otton goes off, dude. You're going to be so excited. But hope everybody has an awesome weekend playing some DFS with us. Don't forget to join our league. I'll have a contest up for Sunday morning in London and right into the main slate. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.